Hello there, friends. As you can see, I thought about throwing on some heavy lip liner and pretending to be Lisa from Girl Interrupted. But I'm not sure I wouldn't catch some negative reviews, considering that this is on YouTube. So I figured I should probably play it safe and attempt to be Susanna instead. When watching Girl Interrupted, directed by James Mangold and released on December 8th in 1999, I can see why it won quite a few awards, and serious awards, for the actresses who were involved. Now, I personally chose to review this movie for quite a few reasons. And by quite a few, I mean 3. Reason number 1. First off, I had never seen this movie. And it was kind of a big deal back in the day. I was told that I needed to experience the standout performances given by many actresses in this film. But I am not the kind of gal who typically chooses movies with heavy topics akin to mental illness. Yet, I felt that now that I'm in my mid-30s, perhaps I could fully appreciate the performances, while at the same time relating them to this class. Reason number 2. When it comes to why I chose to focus on these exceptionalities, I'm gonna shoot it to you straight. I had no idea which exceptionalities were going to be in this film, though there were definitely a few that tied into teaching, as I learned firsthand, because I used to be a teacher. And you never know exactly what you're going to encounter in the melting pot that is your classroom. And while guidance occasionally can assist, and they do, they can't craft a class based entirely around each student's personality. And finally, reason numero tres, I didn't want Professor Smith to have to experience the exact same story of 5,000 times. Considering that I am not going to read my paper for you word for word, though you will see me glancing over occasionally to look at some topics, I'm merely hitting the high points and throwing out some opinions and some thoughts that I had whilst watching this fine flick with a honey chicken and a notepad in hand. Now, okay, so this story, Girl Interrupted, revolves around a gal named Susanna, aka the person I'm dressed up as. Now, I was not aware that this story was based on a true story, because it's kind of bonkers, until I realized that folks, even today, live in just as crazy circumstances. I mean, we are in the middle of a global pandemic and, potentially maybe about to get involved in some unfortunate military stuff. And the number 1 song in the nation is a song from a Disney movie, Encanto. All of that aside, I'm pretty sure that they set this movie in the 1960s so that they could surround it by the chaos that they had going on during those times. Anyway, Susanna is struggling in this life, and her family convinces her, after she downs a bottle of aspirin and then follows it with a bottle of vodka, that she should probably check into this place called Claymore, which is a mental health facility. And so she does, not happily, but then she very slowly begins to connect with the people around her. Now, Susanna's peers in the psychiatric ward, they have a handful of other disorders: schizophrenia, OCD, anorexia, bulimia, pathological lying, some sociopathic tendencies, just to name a few. And each of these gals are characters and definitely make themselves stand out, though not in the most positive light. And while initially Susanna sees the crazy, it begins to blur as friendships are born through trauma, and they create this idea of community and camaraderie between these women. Now, one of the women, Lisa, who is played by Angelina Jolie, she stands out from the moment that she's introduced, and it seems as though she's the leader in many ways. Now, I have a lot to say on this topic, but I'm making myself keep it kind of short and sweet-ish. And so I'm just going to say that trauma bonding is a real thing. And in all groups that we create, a leader will come out. Whether it's positively or negatively, somebody will rise to the top or push themselves to the top. Now, I mean, seriously, think about it. Any class that you've ever been in, any class, there's always somebody who stands out and takes a leadership role in some kind of ways. Some of these leaders are positive, like I said, but some of them are negative. But positive or negative, leaders are leaders. And they influence the room. And Lisa is one of those people. And despite the fact that she was a sociopath, people did seem to follow her. Now, personally, I struggle in many ways with taking something from this film that I could apply in the classroom, except the connection between the players. I feel that when it comes to helping people achieve difficult feats, they should feel safe and secure. And when they feel safe and secure, they will overcome the odds and they will conquer difficulties. Now, one of the connections that was like this in this movie was between Whoopi Goldberg's Valerie and Winona Ryder's Susanna. When Valerie got Susanna to open her eyes and see what was finally going around her, I mean, literally, she threw her into a tub of cold water. That's not what you do with a child in a classroom. But we do remind them, just like Valerie reminded Susanna, that she had so much to offer the world. She didn't belong at Claymore. She deserved freedom, and not the kind of freedom that Lisa kept referring to throughout the film. All the stuff she had been spouting off. While Susanna couldn't grasp it at the moment, she returned to what Valerie said later. And especially when she saw with her own eyes how everything went down between Lisa and the person whose name I'm forgetting, but who was played by Brittany Murphy and who was fantastic. She saw that Valerie was, in fact, speaking the truth. And now, while I have never worked in a mental health facility, I have worked in a high school. And I most definitely used communication to help students through their own struggles in the past, because high schoolers have got a lot of struggles going on, unfortunately. And I have found that when there are times of frustration, a lot of times you need to present options to students so that way they can choose to go and choose to grow. Big picture, this was kind of a difficult film for me to watch. It brought up many questions and many thoughts and ideas that I can't stop ruminating over. The roles of males in our society then in the 60s versus the role of females in our society in the 60s. And not just really back in the 60s, but even today. The idea of trauma bonding as a destructive mechanism that does in fact occur regularly. How the idea of crazy is used to hurt and hinder while also allowing other people to shine. How much of our life is built on societal expectation versus internal expectations. However, this assignment was not an analysis of the themes within this work. It's about the exceptionalities within the film. So, thank you for giving me the opportunity to experience this flick and thoughtfully analyze it in order to help my students in the future.